Thank you. And a very good evening to all the students here. So looking forward to an engaging session. Today we will keep it very light, being the first class. We will basically touch base on a few aspects, the theoretical framework of the accounting. It is actually part of your CPT curriculum. So that is the first chapter in accountancy in your CA-CPT. I'm sure most of you are already aware of all the concepts here, and it will only be a recap of this, of what you have already learned. I hope my screen is visible to all of you.
Yes, sir.
Great. Yeah. So, before we get started, can any one of you please tell me what, according to you, is accounting? I mean, of course, you can see the slide, but if you can put it in your own words, that will be fantastic.
Enterprising the financial transaction and communicating the results of the person interest in such information. Correct.
Any of you would like to go for it?
Bhavika, I think you're trying to answer, but your voice is very low, Bhavika. Can you unmute and come closer to the mic?
Sir, I just read the definition which is written in
on the screen.
Okay.
Okay. So then I'll go and explain. So there are two concepts when we look at it. One is the concept of bookkeeping, and the other is the concept of accounting. Of course, bookkeeping is a subset of the larger concept of accounting. So if you see what is accounting, like the definition says, it means you have to record the financial transactions, and you have to classify these transactions under appropriate heads. So most of you being the commerce students would have already experienced what is the journal book and what is a ledger book. Journal being called as the primary books of accounts, and ledger being the secondary books of accounts. So you have something called recording of financial transactions. So, and then you classify it into your ledger accounts. That forms part, these two aspects is what we call as the bookkeeping exercise. From there on, you move into the accounting process, where you are able to summarize, analyze, and of course, interpret. So when we say summarizing, it takes the form of the financial statements. Can anyone tell me what are the various things that you would consider as part of financial statements? What constitutes financial statements? Just go for it. I mean, please keep it engaging. I'm sure all of you know these, concepts. It's just a recap of your day when in your accountancy class in the 11th standard.
So whatever you know, you can share, students.
Yeah, please feel free. Okay.
So a balance sheet is a financial statement.
Beautiful. Excellent. And what else do you think? I'm sorry, who was that answering?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Saida.
Saida, yes, Saida.
Yeah. Zaida, so apart from balance sheet, are you able to think of anything else which forms part of your financial statements?
Journal, sir.
A journal comes under recording. So that is the primary book of account.
Oh.
It does not form part of your financial statements.
Sir, what about profit and loss account?
Beautiful. So profit and loss account is part of your financial statements. Balance sheet is part of your financial statements. We just need one
Trading
more.
account?
Sorry?
Trading account?
Trading account? Yes, trading account is, of course, a part of your financial statements. Maybe there is only one concept left, like only one part of the financial statements left. I'm not particularly sure, but you have cash flow statements as part of your curriculum in 11th or 12th. Does it come as part of your curriculum?
Have you so far learned about cash flow statement, students?
Sir, cash book, purchase return books, sales book, subsidiary books.
Excellent. So these are all forming part of your secondary books of accounts. So when we are saying it is about classifying all the books that you are mentioning will actually go into your classification. So in this definition, when you see recording and classifying, all these books, I mean the cash book, your bank book, all these aspects will form under your ledger accounts, right? Primary and secondary books of accounts, but they will not form part of your financial statements. So financial statements, like some of you mentioned, is actually your trading and profit and loss account on the one side, and you have balance sheet on the other side. You can also say cash flow statement is part of your financial statements. So only three aspects come under financial statements. That is the summary of your entire accounting process. All the other parts, like your journal book, your cash book, the bank book, and all the other ledgers will be part of your ledger accounts. Yeah. And creating all these entries will be called as, is the process of bookkeeping. So you have your primary books of accounts, like your journal and journal books, and then you have the secondary books of accounts, which is called ledger books. From ledger books, the summary of ledger books is what you call as your trial balance, which shows the balance, your debit balance or the credit balances of each of the account is taken and presented in the form of your trial balance. And from trial balance is where you extract and prepare your financial statements. Got it? So your profit and loss or your balance sheet is actually extracted from your trial balance. So unless your trial balance totals equally on the debit and credit side, we will not be able to draw the financial statements, which is the P&L account and the balance sheet. So when we say accounting versus bookkeeping, the initial recording of the transactions is actually happening at the bookkeeping phase. So that is the phase one, or the first phase of your accounting. And after that, only in the second phase, the real accounting work begins, which is about preparing your financial statements, preparing some key aspects, focusing on some data points in it, and interpretation of those data points to help in decision making. So that is the concept of accounting, and it is a bit different from bookkeeping. It extends beyond bookkeeping. Got it, students?
Yes, sir.
So the objectives, I mean, theoretically speaking, there are going to be certain objectives, and there are much more when you come out in practical world. There is going to be a lot of other use cases, but theoretically speaking, there are going to be the core objectives of accounting would include your recording of transactions, analyze ascertainment of the results of the transactions. So transaction means, I mean, here in the world of accounting, it only includes those which have a financial value or money value to it. So if there is anything that occurs, anything that changes without having a monetary value assigned to it, those are generally kept outside of accounting. So accounting does not take into consideration anything that does not have money value to it. That is one of the serious limitations to accounting. And of course, in the modern day era, there are ways and means of trying to bring those aspects also into consideration in some form or the other. We will come to it at a later part in time, but a later point in time. But for now, accounting actually stands as such for systematic recording of transactions, ascertaining what is the result of the recorded transactions, whether you are incurring a profit, I mean, incurring a loss or earning some profit from the transactions, ascertainment of financial position of the business. When we say financial position, are you able to relate to any particular financial statement? So we saw there are three parts to the financial statements. One is trading P&L account. Two is, of course, your balance sheet. And three is your cash flow statement. When you're talking about financial position of a business, are you able to think of any particular financial statements? Any one of you, please?
So it's a profit and loss account.
Great. And how about balance sheets?
Yeah, you can even know by that. I'm not sure about it, but I feel it's like profit and loss account. Like you know whether the company is going by profit or loss, like by that account.
Brilliant. So the profit or loss account is actually going to help us in ascertaining the results of the recorded transactions. So whether we have earned a profit or we have incurred a loss comes out of, that comes out of the transactions that you have accounted for, and that addresses the second point. For the third point, which talks about your financial position or the financial health of the business, as on a given date, it is more oriented towards your balance sheets. Balance sheet helps you in analyzing the financial status as on a given date. And that is where we are talking about. In the point number 3, when you're talking about financial position of a business, it is more oriented towards your balance sheet. The second point on results of the recorded transactions is basically talking about your trading P&L account. And so then it also, of course, provides information for decision making, and we saw that. To know about the solvency position, that is the 5th point on the slide. Can any of you recollect the concept of solvency? Any guesses, like what could probably mean solvency?
Solvency is somewhere where like the business is not able to earn and it's gonna dissolve. Like it is not gonna exist anymore in the market.
Great. Great. So that's a very nice way of putting it across. That is actually the concept of insolvency. And you are right. Like accounting helps us in assessing whether the business is moving towards insolvency or it is actually in a solvent position, right? So these are some of the objectives. So you can actually consider your the world of accounting will help you in summarizing and you're analyzing and interpreting whether or not your business is running well or the business there are some decisions that you have to take to improve the position and whether or not the business can continue to exist and grow, right? So these are some of the core areas that you look forward to in accounting. So the functions within the process of accounting, what are the various functions it actually helps in? One is, of course, measurement. I mean, it is a measurement of any monetary transactions, and it helps in forecasting. It helps in decision making, like we spoke. It helps in comparison and evaluation control, and it helps the government regulations and taxation. So these are all very theoretical aspects of the functions of accounting. And so we not necessary that we may have to spend more time on these aspects. Sorry, I was somebody wanted to speak. Yeah. We'll move on to the fundamental differences. We saw at a high level what is bookkeeping and what is accounting. We, of course, I mean, I mentioned to you, the first two aspects in the process of accounting is nothing but bookkeeping, and accounting starts from there. So recording and classifying falls under bookkeeping. I mean, that constitutes your bookkeeping exercise. And from there on, right from the third process, it falls into the bucket of accounting. It extends to the larger concept or the larger area of accounting, right? So these are some of the basic differences that you call for between bookkeeping and accounting. Bookkeeping, like, it is about recording the transactions. So the core objective of bookkeeping exercise is to ensure you're recording accurately and you're recording all the transactions. There should not be any transactions that is missed out, and or you should not inaccurately account for any of the transactions. So inaccurate accounting can be in terms of the value. Instead of accounting for 10,000 rupees, if I account for 1,000 rupees, that is inaccurate bookkeeping, inaccurate accounting for the transaction. And instead of calling an expense, I account it as an income. That is again an inaccuracy. Instead of accounting under a different head of accounts, if I account it under some other account head, that is another inaccuracy. So these fundamental aspects we'll have to take care of when it comes to bookkeeping. When it comes to accounting, it deals with a larger areas. You will have to comply with the laws of the land, the regulations, etc. There are going to be accounting standards prescribed, and you will have to adhere to those standards when preparing the financial statements. And you will have to see what additional disclosures you will have to make, etc., etc. So accounting, of course, is going to consider a larger set of factors apart from the very basic principles of bookkeeping. But let us remember, bookkeeping forms the basis of accounting and is the subset of accounting, and therefore we should not take it lightly. It is the fundamental premise basis which your accounting can go right. If something goes wrong in bookkeeping, then we will not be able to get accurate presentation in your financial statements, and therefore the interpretation and all of it can go wrong. So we will quickly go through this slide. There are going to be 6 points that will help you differentiate. Yeah. Tanushree, you wanted to highlight some specific point?
Yes, Tanushree, you want to ask something to sir? Can you unmute?
Okay. All right. We'll quickly go through these differences. So bookkeeping is concerned, of course, with recording of transactions, and accounting is concerned with your summarization of the transactions that is recorded. So, of course, if a transaction is not recorded, you will not be able to take it into account when you prepare a summary of those transactions. The second point is bookkeeping is the base for accounting, but for the business, accounting is actually the language of business. Bookkeeping, financial statements do not form part of that process. But in accounting, financial statements are prepared on the basis of whatever is recorded in the bookkeeping process. Bookkeeping does not concern about managerial decisions and things like that. Management decisions are taken on the basis of the accounting process, right? So bookkeeping is the fundamental premise, and therefore there can't be any subfields within bookkeeping as it is. But of course, in accounting, there are going to be various other subfields apart from what is mentioned here. When you all come out, I'm sure you will find a lot of other areas too, apart from financial accounting, management accounting, cost accounting, social responsibility accounting, and whatnot. The last point is about financial position of the business cannot be ascertained through bookkeeping, but of course, when it is accounted for, that is the financial statements are prepared, etc., the financial position of the business is ascertained there. So these are the differences between your bookkeeping and accounting. But of course, let us always remember, and I'm just reiterating, that bookkeeping is a subset of accounting and forms the basis of your entire accounting process. So we need to be really strong in bookkeeping in order to learn accounting. Shall we move on? If any questions, please do ask me. Shall we move on?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Sure. So these are some of the subfields in accounting. By any chance, are any of you familiar with any accountants in your circle? Which might have influenced your decision in choosing commerce as a field or taking the CA entrance exam as a course for your career path.
Cost accounting, sir.
That's interesting. How do you know about it?
My friend said that sir, my friend said for cost accounting the salary is paid high. So
That's nice. So your friend is a cost accountant?
no, sir. She knows some details about that, so she said.
And anybody else knows about any other areas in accounting? You may all have heard about the chartered accountants, the cost accountants, the company secretaries. Some of you may have interacted with them also, probably. Very honestly put, the subfields in accounting extends much more than what is represented here. These are very high level overviews that is being taken here. So the first point is, of course, on financial accounting, where the preparation and interpretation of financial statements is the core activity of the financial accountants. It is an evergreen field. It is always going to be a challenging field also. And that is one of the most interesting areas where one can be part of and work there. The second aspect is on management accounting, where you prepare a lot of analytical reports on to suggest to the management on what are the various scheme of things the business is supposed to take. What are the decisions that it should take when it comes to managing their business? It could be related to cost control related activities. It could be about how to run the business, how to earn more revenue. It could be on costing. It could be on inventory holding. It could be even on your contracting and whatnot. So management accounting actually helps in a diverse set of areas. There is no one particular area that it will consider. The third aspect on cost accounting, like the name suggests, it is more about identifying and ensuring you're able to control your cost. So if you see, even the governments of every country will study on how and where exactly are they incurring costs by and large, right? So so sector-wise, industry-wise, they will ask for what is the spend going towards. They have all those reports. The government will have all the reports based on which they take policy decisions. The fourth aspect is, of course, on social responsibility accounting. It is an emerging field at this point in time as we speak. It concerns about what is the societal benefit that is created by the business or by the institutions, and versus what is the harm that the business actually causes for the environment or the society at large. Right? So it is an emerging field, and there are like frameworks that are coming up every single day in this particular area. Of course, there is some kind of a standardization at this point in time, but there are many more things happening in this interesting field. The last one is about human resource accounting. It is again, I would say it is a misnomer, but of course it is another area where you can see a lot of things coming up. It is more or less relatable to the management accounting piece, where you will have your analysis done, but this is more specifically on the human resource cost. So shall we move on to the next topic? Any doubts in this slide? Any doubts, students?
Sir, can you go over social responsibility accounting again?
Sure. So social responsibility accounting. So for example, if we set up a chemical manufacturing company, what are the different things that we should consider, right? So if they are going to cause any pollution to water or air, or they're going to discharge the effluents, what kind of a harm it creates to the society at large, right? So that is one of the, and how much of a cost that one should incur in order to undo the damage that they cause for the society at large, right? So that is one of the areas. The this is on the negative aspect I'm talking about. The positive aspect on setting up a new company or a factory or any other business can be considered very differently. It relates to the job opportunities created in that particular area, the number of job opportunities created, what kind of skill sets they are building in the people. They bring in money in circulation, and therefore the livelihood of a lot of people is taken into account. And they may provide, skill set trainings in order. I mean, they may hire freshers, they may hire unskilled labor and convert them into skilled labor, and all those various different aspects, which creates a societal benefit. So there has to be a trade-off between the societal benefits created by the enterprise versus what is the social cost that they end up causing. So that is the field that you're looking at, and there are going to be various concepts relating to the study. It is classified into three different verticals generally. One is, of course, on the environmental aspects, where it relates to air, water, and the second one extends to the societal factors. Like I mentioned, it is about the human resource aspect. Like it could be like number of jobs created, what are its policies towards the job creations, what is the money in circulation created by this enterprise, etc. So that is on the societal aspects. And the third aspect is on governance, whether they conduct their business ethically, morally, and they do the right things, etc. So these three factors culminated, they is being looked at when it comes to social responsibility. And there are various measurement criteria for looking at these kind of aspects.
Thank you, sir.
No problem at all. Any other questions that any of you have? Okay. So if not, I'll move to the next area. Uses of accounting, of course, it extends to two larger sets. It could be your internal users within the enterprise. It could be external users. And then therefore, accordingly, the use cases will vary. The way they read the accounting records will vary, right? But let us also always remember, they are all going to use the accounting records, and they're not going to have access, or they are not going to be able to see the bookkeeping records, where we talked about the books of your journal books, your cash books, your bank books, and the ledger accounts, right? So those are not there, but from the financial statements that you have prepared, they will be taking a view of it, and maybe they are taking decisions based on these aspects, right? And therefore, bookkeeping I'm just reiterating the fundamental fact. We should be really, really strong in bookkeeping in order to to be able to do accounting in the right manner and to make it more useful for the various set of users. Users could vary between investors, lenders, your suppliers, customers, government. It could be your employees and public, right? So you have a whole lot of users reading your accounting records, and therefore
Yes, students, I think sir's videos got stuck. Okay, meanwhile, I hope you are able to understand now whatever is being taught.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Very good, ma. Very good. Very good. Okay, let's just wait for sir to join back. Till then, you can go through what sir has taught so far, ma.
Okay, sir.
Sure, sure.
Okay, sir.
Other students, most students can also come on video, ma. Yeah. So it'll be like a live class and the offline class, no? We can interact. Yes, Anjali, how are you?
Yeah. Sorry for the disconnection. I was unaware that I got disconnected. I was talking. I got disconnected. So I mean, can somebody tell me where I got dropped off? I was talking about this concept of the users in accounting, or users of accounting, and we were looking at different sets of users, internal versus external users. And I was trying to explain how each of them could probably look at various scheme of things. Not everybody is going to look at the same information on the same level of detail. For example, your investors are going to read certain specific areas with greater details compared to your suppliers. And the way your customers would read may be more or less similar to the way your investors read the information. But of course, it could also vary slightly. They may look at few fundamental aspects and leave it. Beyond that, they may not get into the details. But the way your government and other regulators are going to read the information is going to be very different. The government sources, like I mentioned, in cost accounting, it helps in creating policies, the nationwide policies, industry-wide policies, etc., etc. So the government picks and chooses what information it needs for various purposes. It could be cutting across industry verticals. It could be on different use cases. As an employee of any of the organization, you're going to look at whether we can continue in the same company. Is it healthy? Is it profitable? Are we going to be able to get our next promotions and raises? And are we going to do well in this company? And as part of your management, you will, of course, be decision makers. You being the future leaders are going to decide where exactly we should be focusing on, or what are the different scheme of things that we should be focusing on, and how it can help the turnaround of the company or make the company more profitable and run better. As a general public, you're going to read the accounting information to understand if this company is creating an impact that it promises. Are we supposed to become an investor, or we should still wait and watch? And what are the various things that you want this company to be bringing to you? There could be societal factors improvement. It could be about adherence to the laws and regulations, and a whole lot of other factors. So the way each user is going to read your financial statement will vary across the use cases. But the hard part of it is that you cannot prepare separate set of financial statements to meet the needs of investors, to meet the needs of your customers, and so on and so forth. So you will have to have one uniform structure, one uniform pattern that will address the requirements of all these users in a holistic manner. And they should be able to take whatever they want and accordingly make the decisions there. Right. So that is the most interesting aspect in the field of accounting. So it has a larger set of audience, but of course you will have to meet all those requirements in a uniform manner, addressing all the requirements as much as possible. Of course, any of your current financial statements does have its gap, and there is a constant improvement. That is what the CA Institute does on a day-to-day basis. That is their job. to see how the gaps are getting addressed, right? So that's one. And if you, I'm sure all of you being commerce students are already learning all these in some form or the other. The other subjects could be economics, statistics, mathematics, law, management, and various other disciplines, right? So, and you will be able to relate how closely accounting is actually linked to the world of economics, to the world of mathematics. You need to have this knowledge of algebra in order to be able to relate to your accounting transactions, right? So, for example, there are going to be some use cases where you will be computing the interest rates in maths. You will be given your annual value, present value, your number of years, etc., etc. And you will be asked to compute the rate of returns or the annuity rates. So those kind of transactions, it could be in algebraic expressions, it could be any other linear equations and things like that, right? So all those aspects are fundamentally going to help you in relating to the field of accounts when it comes. Maths is going to be de facto a requirement in case of your for accounts, right? So it is all numbers, but of course, accounts is not just about numbers. It's more about how you read the numbers and how you interpret from these numbers. As accountants, you will learn that you are going to influence lawmaking and policy making in nation-wide policies, state-wide policies, industry-wide policies, and sometimes even cross-border policies, including cross-border taxations and things like that. So that's a very, very vast field. But as you keep reading these numbers in as an accountant, you will know that how interesting it gets and how it is very closely related to law. Law is never formed without taking into account what is the economic value of a certain event or a transaction. So that is a fundamental premise for any law formation, if you see in the world of business. Management, we have discussed enough. So if you are an investor, if you are running the company as a manager or you're the head of the organization as the CEO or MD, you will need a lot of aspects to be factored to see how profitably or how well you can run the organization from there on. And therefore, accounting has a very, very close, and that is the language of any business, and that is the language of any of your managers. So they're going to read accounts like on a day-to-day basis. They're going to breathe it. We'll move on, or if any of you have any other questions here, we'll take that. Okay, I think we'll move on. So we will briefly touch upon the limitations. We have discussed that enough, of course. None of the non-monetary factors are going to be reflected in accounts. That's a shortcoming you have. But let us also remember it helps in decision making, which also influences the non-monetary aspects of it. But of course, accounting as it is will not be able to provide information on non-monetary factors. For example, if you need a particular, the value of a particular employee, the kind of experience that one brings to the table, the amount of knowledge he brings to the table, or the loyalty factor of a particular employee and things like that is never going to be disclosed in any part of accounts, right? So that's a shortcoming that we have in accounting. The second aspect is accounting is based on historical transactions. So you account for a particular transaction which has already occurred, and it is not something that is futuristic. So you're not going to have that view of where it is heading towards. It can, of course, give you a trend line, but it cannot guarantee that this trend line is about to keep pace in the in the future course. So that's one of the shortcoming as it is in accounting. But here again, it helps you in a concept called valuation. Accounting forms the basis of the larger concept for valuation. And that is another science where you will be able to project based on your historical performance on what is the value of this enterprise, what is the value of this organization, and accordingly when you are turning out to be an investor, some of you could have already started your journey of investments. I'm not too sure, but some of your parents, of course, would have already been into this field. That is one area where you will learn a lot about valuation. Investments are largely about valuation. The third aspect, of course, is it ignores inflation. It does not factor in all those aspects. And some of your accounting concepts is going to be based on estimation, where you don't have more accurate information. You're going to rely on your ability, your judgments, and fundamentally taking care of those aspects. But these estimations will form part of your financial statements. So to the extent your estimations are incorrect or it is correct, it is going to be as accurate as the judgments are. Right? So that's one of the minute shortcoming, I would say, because there are going to be more fundamental aspects to how you can make your estimations. So there's a whole lot of literature on how an estimation can actually be taken, right? On what grounds you can make your estimations, when you can make estimations. All these are also really called out. And therefore, that is not a very strong limitation. That is of course, a minor limitation that you may encounter in accounting. When it comes to the scope of being an accountant in the society, all of you are very well aware, probably more aware than I am. But some of it is, of course, in the field of auditing, being a statutory auditor, being an internal auditor, being a taxation expert. You can be part of the management accounting and part of consulting exercises. You can become a financial advisor yourself, like you can become an investment advisor, insurance advisor, and whatnot. There are also other interesting areas related to company formations, share registrations, and other secretarial jobs. And then the role in industry at large. When I say industry, it could be the manufacturing industry, services industry, could be in the field of farming, fishing, fisheries, and a whole lot of agriculture is another upcoming area in the field of accounting. So those areas are going to be other job opportunities, and where as accountants you can play a larger role. Public sector enterprises, needless to say, they are always short of accountants. And of course, like we have always been talking, like in framing nationwide policies, fiscal policies for the country, for the state, for the district. Of course, there are going to be lots of engagements that you will be part of in your journey as an accountant. So a lot of things, a lot of scope, basically, as accountants that you have. So this sums up our, the fundamental concepts, or the theoretical framework of accounting. Largely, it relates to what accounting means and what it does not mean, and how you have to differentiate between bookkeeping and accounting. And it is also about the importance of bookkeeping when it comes to accounting, right? So these are the fundamental concepts that one should always be able to relate to. And you should also be able to relate to what are the different types of users you have for seeking your accounting information, internal, external. It could be larger set of audiences, right, from investors to the employees and management who are going to be internal users. So then you also have some objectives of accounting, some limitations of accounting, and what are the use cases of accountants, or what are the larger set of roles that you as accountant can play in the society. So these are the aspects that we have covered today. A quick, like a minute, less than a minute, we will run through a few fundamental questions. It's a piece of cake for all of you. So can we go for the first question? I mean, please unmute yourself, and who the fastest fingers first, like.
Sir,
Yep.
sales management.
Great. Second question, financial statements.
Accounting.
Third one,
Accounting.
users of accounting. Sorry.
Both.
Both.
Good. If we are to
No.
look at true or false.
False.
No, first one
False.
is false.
Okay. Second one. Second, accounting is for internal use.
Yes. Internal use as well as external use.
So it should be both internal and external use, and therefore
Yeah.
It's false.
third one.
Using the
True.
basic functions of accounting.
Third one is true.
Function. Accounting. Yeah.
Yes,
Sir.
sir.
False.
Yes. True.
Sorry, I heard a false. Third one is basically true. So summarizing is the first and most basic function of accounting. So recording and classifying is nothing but bookkeeping, but summarizing is going to be the first and fundamental step in accounting. So the third statement is of course true. So I think, I think we will not be able to spend more time. So in the next session, whenever we meet, we will have the other key concepts covered, students. So I would like to talk about periodicity, the concept of accrual, matching concept, the concept of going concern. We will be spending more details on going concern as a concept. It's a very interesting concept, and of course going to be the fundamental premise of the entire set of your bookkeeping and accounting records. Then you also have the concepts around cost, and then what is meant by realization. Then the conservatism, consistency, and materiality, I'm sure all of you would have also read through. So these are some of the key concepts that we will go through in the next class before we get into the further details on bookkeeping. So if you're able to refresh your memory on these concepts, we can probably look at improving the speed and moving on with the other topics also. Yeah. Any other points, any other questions relating to accounts, or anything that you think we should discuss now? I'm open to it. Any questions or any other points that you wanted to discuss on accounting?
Yes, students, in case if you have any doubts in what sir has covered today or in general in accounting, you can use this opportunity to ask a question to sir.
I
Are all the
think.
concepts clear, no? Everybody? Yes, just go through that, and I'll discuss with sir, and yeah, we can pass on some notes to you as well in the group, so that you can go through. That will kind of it'll be reiterating what sir has covered, and you will have an opportunity to prepare from that as well. Right, students? So, any questions? Understood everything? Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Very good, students. Okay, so
Yes, sir.
all the very best. All the very best. Okay, we will conclude the class here, and we'll meet in person on Saturday. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Have a nice
Okay, sir.
evening. Very good that you all joined. Right. Take care. Good night.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.